Before the flood, before rebellion first took root in the human heart, the earth was wrapped in a peace so pure that even the winds seemed to whisper prayers. The memory of Idrīs, known to some as Enoch, still lingered among the valleys and mountains. His wisdom, once spoken beneath starlit skies, flowed through generations like a sacred echo. People built gardens where he had taught, carved symbols of balance upon stones, and spoke his name with reverence. They remembered how he had walked with the angels, how he had mapped the heavens and guided their forefathers to live in harmony with the Creator. The world in those days was young yet wise. Forests stretched far and untamed, rivers wound through fields of gold, and mankind still walked gently upon the earth. Villages had grown into towns, and towns had swelled into cities of clay and stone. The children of Adam had mastered the craft of shaping metal and learned how to tame the soil. They built homes with care, lived by trade and farming, and sang hymns at dawn to thank their Lord for the gift of life and rain. For a time, there was balance between heaven and earth. But peace has a fragile soul, and even light casts a shadow. As generations passed, a quiet forgetfulness began to bloom in human hearts. The descendants of Idrīs called themselves the children of the sky, claiming to descend from those who once walked with celestial beings. They studied the stars not to glorify their Maker, but to glorify themselves. If we can read the heavens, they said, then we are masters of our fate. Curiosity gave birth to arrogance. The same hands that once raised altars to God now built towers to their own greatness. Still, there were those who remembered the old path, the descendants of Sheath, son of Adam, who continued to gather at the house of remembrance. This ancient sanctuary stood on sacred ground, its stones weathered but alive with the spirit of devotion. Here they prayed as the prophets had prayed, facing the open sky, their hearts lifted toward the unseen. Yet their voices grew fewer, and the laughter of the heedless grew louder. With the rise of craftsmanship came an age of wonder and pride. Humanity discovered fire's full strength, shaped tools of bronze, and charted the cycles of time. Ships began to cross rivers, trade flourished, and the earth yielded its hidden treasures. It was a golden age of knowledge, but knowledge, when stripped of reverence, becomes a mirror for pride. We can shape the world, said the kings of the cities. We can command the earth, and nothing is beyond our grasp. What began as gratitude for the gifts of God became worship of the gifts themselves. Then came the sculptors. At first, they carved statues to honor the righteous, men and women who had once walked among them with virtue and faith. We do not worship them, they said, we only remember them. But remembrance slowly became reverence, and reverence turned into worship. The names of 5 noble souls, Wad, Suah, Yaguth, Yauk, and Nasr, were preserved in stone, and their images were placed upon altars. The hearts that once called upon the Creator now called upon His servants. Thus was born the first corruption, subtle, beautiful, and deadly. Whispers began to stir among the people. The righteous warned them, but the warnings were mocked. The unseen world stirred as well. The jinn who had once fled from the light of Adam now returned to whisper in human ears, "You are divine. You command the world." And mankind, seduced by its own reflection, believed the lie. The heavens grew silent, not because God had withdrawn, but because man had stopped listening. Generations rolled by like waves. Cities rose higher into the clouds, but faith sank into dust. The children of the sky turned upon one another in envy and war. The blood of brotherhood darkened the earth, and the songs of gratitude turned into cries of conquest. The teachings of Idrīs were twisted into myths, and those who remembered were hunted or silenced. It was an age of brilliance and decay, light and shadow bound in one. Yet in a quiet valley, surrounded by green hills and clear rivers, a small people remained steadfast. They lived humbly, herding flocks and tending the soil, their hearts still tuned to the voice of the unseen. From among them, the Almighty chose a soul unlike any other, gentle in spirit, fierce in truth, destined to bear the weight of a warning that would echo across eternity. His name would be Noah. On the night he was born, the sky shimmered with a strange stillness. The stars burned brighter than ever before, and the air carried a faint scent of rain, though no cloud had yet formed. His mother, a woman of faith, whispered prayers over her child as she held him close. The elders spoke quietly among themselves. "This child will be a sign. His name shall mean rest and peace, for through him the world will be tested and renewed." Nuh grew in wisdom as other children grew in strength. He found wonder not in riches or games, but in silence, in the language of wind, water, and light. He would sit by the river and listen as if the earth itself spoke to him. He saw beauty in patience, truth in simplicity, and grace in every act of mercy. When he came of age, he often walked to the hill where the ancient house of remembrance stood, its walls cracked, its stones covered in moss, but its spirit alive. There he prayed alone, his voice rising softly into the dusk. In those moments he felt watched not by men, but by the heavens. Then, one night, as sleep wrapped him beneath a canopy of stars, a vision came. He saw an endless sea, dark and rising, swallowing mountains and valleys alike. He heard thunder without lightning, and wind without mercy. But above the flood floated a single light, a vessel vast and glowing, carrying those who remembered their Lord. And then he heard a voice, vast yet intimate, speaking within his soul. "Prepare, for corruption shall drown the earth, but through you life shall begin anew." He awoke trembling, his heart pounding as though the sky itself had entered his chest. He did not yet understand the dream, but he knew it was not of this world. Years passed, and Nuh became a man respected for his fairness and peace. He married, raised children, and worked among his people with patience and honesty. Yet his heart carried the weight of what he had seen. As time went on, he watched his society descend into vanity. The idols grew taller, the kings prouder, the poor forgotten. Temples that once echoed with hymns now glittered with gold. Priests traded forgiveness for silver, and justice bent before the rich. One evening, as Nuh stood beside the river at sunset, the voice returned, clearer than ever before, filled with both love and command. "O Nuh, I have chosen you among your people. Arise and warn them. Call them to the truth, that none may be destroyed except by their own choosing." The river's surface rippled, though no wind blew, and the air grew warm with light. In that moment, Nuh fell to his knees. The task before him was immense, but his heart was calm. For the first time since the world began to forget, a prophet had been chosen to remind humanity who they were. And thus began the age of warning, the final dawn before the storm.